Well, hello. Today's video has to do with the paranormal, more specifically the Exorcist movie and the relationship that I had with one of the demons from it. I was actually talking today with my son Adam about a very personal and scary endeavor that I'm about to embark upon, and was talking about that I feel like I'm better equipped now, and that I can handle something that I'm about to confront, potentially a demonic energy from my that's been following me for my whole life, and attached to a loved one, and I'm about to swan dive into it. But he told me about the $400 million deal that Universal or somebody made to do a trilogy uh, for the Exorcist. And so I thought, you know what? I wonder if people would be curious to hear about my story, because it is interesting. And that is, in 2005, I was living in St. Louis. I've been in St. Louis since I was 10 till I was about 50. And so I'm 54 now. And so in 2005, an article came out in a local paper called the Riverfront Times, and it was a front page. It was, I think, October 26th was when it hit the press for Halloween, and it talked about that it was actually a boy, and he came from New York, I believe, but he actually came to stay, I think, with his uncle that lived in St. Louis, for before he was studied by experts. And so there was a house that was just almost across the street in the neighborhood from where I graduated from college at University of Missouri St. Louis. And this house actually appeared on the front page of the October 26th, I think it was 2005, release. And it was talking about that this house has like a high turnover rate, because it's seems to be haunted. And I actually have a friend, a best friend at that time, whose husband was a Jesuit, and for St. Louis University, and he knew firsthand of a dormitory that they had to demolish, because that young boy was taken from the house to this dormitory to be studied. And after he moved on from there, there was so much paranormal activity, very hostile and cold and aggressive, that they actually had to demolish the entire dormitory. At that time, I think it was owned by Alexian Brothers. But anyways, so my story is from that October 26th. I think it was released on a Friday, and we were talking about it at work, because there was little machines where that free tabloid, all around Webster Groves where I worked, and so everybody had their own Riverfront Times, and we were talking about it, and one of my coworkers was daring me, like, to have a picnic in that house, and I was like, no, I would never. Why would I do something like that? Because I actually have had a particular firsthand knowledge of going into a place that has a very dark past. And this was many years ago when my children were young, and me and my husband and my children went to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, historic town, and there's a very old hotel called the Crescent Hotel that's up on a hill. It's a huge white colonial kind of, as I recall, hotel, and we had sort of heard that there was maybe some history there. And so we asked the person that was at the admissions, if he could give us a little tour around, because we were thinking of maybe staying there. And so he did. He gave us a quick little tour. And as we got further into the belly of the hotel, there was this claustrophobia that started to set in. And I wasn't sure if it was, the hotel was actually very stark and sterile, kind of looking, and the rooms were small. But it was almost like as we got further into the hotel, away from the safety of the exterior, that I started to get this sort of like foreboding kind of feeling. And I didn't understand it. I hadn't had any kind of experience like this before. And I remember there was this hallway on the first floor. It had scarlet crimson kind of carpet. And at the end of the hallway, there was this mirror. And it was, dead end hallway. And I just remember walking down this hallway having this feeling like, and I don't know if this was in, The Shining, or if it was in other sort of horror movies, and you just have this feeling like you start running down the hallway, and then the hallway just keeps getting longer and longer and longer, and you just never reach the end. And I had this feeling as I was looking down this hallway that it was a lot deeper than what I perceived. Anyways, we were only in that hotel for under an hour. And by the time we all got to the car in the parking lot, we were all so crabby and angry and just had such a hostility about us that we definitely didn't have when we went in there. In fact, when we went in there, it was this sort of like adventure. Oh yeah, this haunted hotel and blah blah blah. Well, no, that gave me firsthand knowledge that you don't play around with stuff like that, because there's a power that these energies have in this invisible realm, and so much of our life, is like we're moving through it in a physical sort of way, but there's so much around us that is affecting what our outcome on so many different levels that we just can't see, and we don't know. And this life is hard enough to navigate with what we can see, than messing with stuff that we can't see. So that was my lesson in you don't mess with dark energies. And incidentally, what we were told was that Crescent Hotel, in the basement, they were doing medical experiments on, I believe it was orphaned children. And so there was some, whether this was true or not, I don't know, but I do know that there was something very dark and still very much alive in that hotel. Anyways, so when my coworker Josh was daring me, like, oh yeah, let's have a picnic in that hotel, or in that house in St. Louis, and I was just like, no. Especially with, the movie The Exorcist just totally creeped me out, scared me, like nothing else. And then, of course, later the uncut version was released, and that freaked me out even more, because there was this version of where Linda Blair's character, Reagan, I think her name is walking down the stairs like in a spider kind of, it's just I can see why they didn't allow that in the theater clip. Anyway, so that movie is by far, there's something very real that penetrated me just from watching it in theaters. I don't have to witness any of it firsthand. So when I left work that uh, October Friday evening, the sun was already setting, and I think it was actually already starting to be dark. And it had just rained, and it was overcast and dreary, cool, St. Louis Midwest kind of weather. And after I left work, I started to, play it out in my head, the conversation that had sort of filled the day with my own sort of narrative. And I after I left work, I realized I had to pick a few things up for dinner, and so I just popped into the grocery store. And when I came back to the car, I pulled out of the parking space and I found my way to the road, and it was a busy two-way street. Um, I had to turn left onto it, and this was probably around 5:30, on a Friday evening, and so it was high traffic. And so as I was just sitting there waiting for my turn, not seeing any kind of opening in sight, being lulled by the left turn signal, the blinker, my mind sort of went back to that story. And I started thinking about it a little bit, and not really sure what it was that I was starting to think at this point. All I knew is my focus was back in how close it was, because St. Louis, the area of St. Louis, the city, but the county of St. Louis, it's not huge. It's not a huge, I mean, it's large enough, but to be able to know firsthand, from when I used to go to school there, that area, that's close, that's pretty close for comfort. And when you think about, or when I thought about the idea of, I didn't realize that this house was, because all this had happened many years before I had gone to school there, but that this piece of horror history, real creepy St. Louis history, was, just a few miles down the road from where I was going to school, was unsettling, to say the least. And so to feel the personal kind of relevance that this story seemed to be bringing up in me was unsettling, very unsettling, and it was disturbing my sense of Libra peace and balance. And so my mind sort of went back there as I was waiting my place in line. And next thing I knew, all of a sudden there was an opening, and I stepped on the gas to make the left-hand turn. And there's another, as I was making the left-hand turn, I was making it into a lane that was moving to the right. So I knew I had to be quick because the traffic was, Friday afternoon, everybody was wanting to get home. And so I stepped on the gas, and as soon as I hit that first lane, I hydroplaned into oncoming traffic. I mean, traffic is coming, and I hydroplaned. And all of a sudden, the light just flashed on. And now you can say, like, was this my imagination? At this point, I didn't know. All I knew was I was scared. In that moment, I was scared. The moments before that, my brain was thinking about this story and this, the demonic energy that attached itself to this child. And next thing I know, I'm hydroplaning and onto oncoming traffic. And so I made the assumption pretty quickly on that was no coincidence, and that this energy that I was calling by thinking about it had picked up the receiver, and now it wanted me to know that it was listening in, and also that it was curious about what I was doing, and that it wanted me to know that it was present. And so right away, I just was like, whoa, okay, this is new. Um, and next thing I knew, my wheels caught traction, and I catapulted safely into the turn lane that I needed to be in. Anyways, that got me thinking that, whenever you have a powerful energy that knows more than you do, that can affect your physical well-being, the only thing that makes sense is that you give that energy props. You let that energy know that it's got the upper hand. Because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to manipulate physical things other than myself. And so if somebody's doing this to me, if it's pretty much showing me and that my life is in its hands, hey, you get it. You win. You win. And so right away, as I'm sitting in my car at the stoplight, about to make another left-hand turn, I'm having like, I know now, this thought is just not taking place inside me. Now I think I'm having a conversation. And so right away, I just let this energy know, wow, yeah, you got it. I'm impressed. Whatever you just did there, I'm not going to challenge. I'm not going to challenge whatever you're doing. And so that was new for me too. Because you see like in the movie and the Exorcist movie and things, like priests and whatnot, throwing holy water and making these, demonic energies like really pissed off. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not pissing anything off. I'm not stupid, because first of all, my life is in its hands. Whatever, I had this idea about that energy. There's so much energy, magical energy, that we don't know how to harness, that doesn't care. It doesn't care what your intention is. Like, if you know how to wield it, it sort of goes with the upper hand. And so the idea that an energy would be that advanced to be able to understand how to physically affect my car, that to me is a masterful energy. Whether, it doesn't matter to me, like if it's dark or if it's light, whatever, it has achieved a certain level of hierarchy. And in that regard, I respect that. Totally respect that. And I do understand that the circumstances that affect our lives and mold us into the people that we are not it's not entirely of our choosing. I think we're the sum total of our life, and I think life sort of based on, the nature and nurture moves us in a particular direction, and 51% of us sort of, I think, at any given moment directs where we're going. And so for some people to, turn darker and more cynical and more negative or evil, I think is a product of their life. Why anybody would choose that kind of road doesn't make sense to me. I think that is sort of a result of so much sadness and hurt and hatred that a person finds themselves absorbed in, I believe, before they ever turn into that sort of an energy. So right away, this energy got my attention. And I know in the movie, it seemed as though there was many energies that were inside this young girl. But what I was connecting with was it was just one, and I don't know which one it was or whatever. All I knew it was demonic energy that was connected to that story. And so all of a sudden, after I gave it the respect and felt a certain degree of safety, because I didn't feel like it needed to challenge me anymore. I felt like it knew that I knew. And so I just began a conversation with it in my mind as I began driving home. And it was about a half-hour drive home, highway driving. And so I sort of just started to unpack it, from the furthest end, which was, what I knew of from the movie. And so if you think about this, what you saw in the movie, you have this, this demonic energy that has attached to this, young girl because she's playing with a Ouija board. And all of a sudden, a priest is in the room, and it is just hurling all kinds of anger and hierarchy on this energy. And so it got me to thinking that from the last point on, this energy has known nothing but bad vibes cast on it, which just fuels, whatever feelings it has, that, or whatever reasons, or that it finds itself being in a situation where it has to feed off of a young girl. It just makes it worse, when you have all this anger cast on it. How's anything supposed to? And I understand, I'm not saying, I understand the nature of the situation is to save this innocent soul, which was, the girl in the movie. But I also understand, from both sides of the coin, that certainly wasn't doing any favors to those energies that were living inside her. So anyways, I started thinking about that and thinking, the most recent experiences that this energy that I was now felt like I was connecting with has known from people like me or humans or whatever, has just been anger and negativity and hatred and get away from us and look what you're doing and blah 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 blah. And the psychological part of me, which has always been curious for a very long time in my life, always trying to understand how we become the people we do, and how socially we become the people that we are, and all that. It sort of had me thinking, how is anything supposed to break out from its perpetual toilet bowl flush if everything that it just keeps knowing is in that same realm of dark. And so I all of a sudden started to feel a type of sympathy for it, because I thought, it's almost like it doesn't even have a choice anymore, because it's in this perpetuating cycle of negativity. And so I found in this moment, because I didn't feel threatened in any way, I could offer it a kind of, gosh, that would suck. That would really suck. I can see why you would continue to be hardened, based on all the negativity that is thrown on you. And so I started to open up to, how does one get to be? How does an energy get to be in such a position? And it started to, or at least I think, it started to sort of unfold a story. And the story, I don't remember the specifics of the story because this happened so long ago. But I remember it was, when it died very sad and very lonely and very isolated, very abandoned, was the kind of mindset that it crossed over into. And not knowing anything but that, it sort of created that world on the other side. And, trying to figure out how to fuel itself. It started to attach to weaker kinds of physical people, until the point where it started to master this idea of feeding, being a type of parasite off of weak, addictive type of people, to where it gained a certain kind of distinction. Anyways, but it took me, further back into its life on Earth. And so the fact that it had died in such a way, it rewound the story even further, to, a childhood that came from nothing. A childhood that came from the bleakest sort of situation. A child trying to clamor for love and still believed and still hoped, and time after time after time as it grew older, just began to settle into a type of despair, where the only relief and solace it seemed to find was in the numbness of, and I don't know what the situation was that gave it the numbness, but its life on Earth was one where at one point it hoped. At one point it still believed that it could find love, and it could find goodness, and it could find happiness. But then, circumstances being what it was, and I don't recall exactly the story that it had told me, but you see many people like this alive today, that really are a product of a life that gave it no chance for real hope, or goodness. So what do you do? What do you do with those kinds of souls? When you trace it back, and no longer is it this, huge demonic energy that is, just feasting off of an innocent young girl, pea soup and throwing her against the wall and all kinds of horrific things that it was doing. But, you look at it as a physical life on earth, and adult that just could not. And you can sort of identify with that a little bit and this and that, but when you trace it back to when it was a child, and as a mom, children, they're so formative. You can just mold them into the most spectacular of souls. Because, from the moment we're born, it's just like all of a sudden, like, what is this place? Who are these people? What are the rules here? They spank you on the butt right after after you come out, it's like, whoa, this is not fun. I don't know what this world is. But there's something, I think, about children that you still feel like you want to love them, you want to hold them, you want to protect them. And so tracing the story back to when this demonic energy was a child, it just really pulled at my maternal heartstrings, and I just was like, oh my God, I wished that you had, that kind of an upbringing, but there's, c'est la vie, as we were talking, I was talking about this recently on my Facebook page, and, you've got people that are just pro-life, and I had never had, a real strong position on that necessarily until I sat next to a woman on the plane just recently who was very, very adamant. Her passion in life, she was a evangelical, and her husband, that's what they did. They traveled around the United States, making sure that the evangelicals were registered to vote, because that was how she voted. The only reason, that was the most important thing, was pro-life. And at first I thought it sounded like a noble pursuit, until the next day I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, now wait a minute. What if a pregnant woman who does not want this baby, cannot have this baby, is not equipped, to give it love and nurturing and, all the attention and everything that a child deserves, to have a happy, fulfilling, launched where it can be an adult and, chase its dreams and blah, blah, blah. What if you have a woman who is at the worst part of that spectrum? What if you have a woman who gets pregnant and she is just so troubled? What if you have a woman that is just evil, because of her upbringing? And now she's pregnant and she feels the pressure of society to have this child and have it and keep it, and what kind of life is she going to give that child? So then sitting next to this woman made me rethink the idea of, I don't know that I realize I'm not black and white about pro-life. I don't know. There's too many variables that moving parts that I just would be like, I'm not going to decide for anybody. Anyways, so it got me to really be moved, at what this demonic energy from the Exorcist movie, the real story, where it came from. And it came from a situation like that, where it was born into this world with just everything stacked against it. And so as I was sort of mourning, I was sharing that with this energy as it had, all of a sudden it was, like it was sort of like a friend at this point, a troubled friend that had taken the time to explain, because I wanted to listen. I was curious. I wanted to understand. And in that moment, I was not that far from home at this point. Gosh, maybe about 5 miles or so from home. And I was just filled with love for that poor little child that never knew tenderness and compassion and protection and safety and kindness. And my heart just was open, and I saw it. I saw this energy as just the way, there for the grace of God go I, why any of us turn out the way that we turn out, as I said, is nature and nurture and circumstance. And so I felt this sort of like, I saw myself in this energy, because why was that not me? That could have been me, could have been any of us. And why this world is the way it is, it's beyond my comprehension. But in that moment, we were just two energies, one that felt an abundance of love and compassion, and one that was so depleted that it had to resort to attaching, to innocent young creatures. And I felt love for this energy. And then something happened. Something so surprising happened that I would never have predicted in a million years. That told me, that showed me, without a doubt, I was not imagining any of this. And what happened was, as I'm feeling, my own sort of like tenderness for this energy, as a child, all of a sudden, this blast of light, love. It was light, but it was a blast of love, came from behind me. I'm driving the car, right? It's nighttime now. Blast of love came from behind me, shot right through my chest. I knew immediately, like the love was so strong. All of a sudden I started crying. I just started crying, and I knew what it was. The other side, light, God, angels, had been waiting for the opportunity to bring this wayward soul home. But the soul was so entombed with its own negativity and with its own mindset that it could not, for the life of it, come out of. And it could not, I believe that there was all these angels and, energies that were trying to bring it home, but this energy was just so entombed in its own darkness that it couldn't see the light. It couldn't hear the light. All it could hear was its own rhetoric. And so somebody like me, that was physical, a physical energy, that this energy still felt physical. It was still attaching to the physical form for whatever reason. It whether it didn't know there was a God, or whether it didn't believe it was worthy of, God, or going home, or whether it thought it was going to be cast into hell. I don't know what the situation was. All I knew was that was the opportunity that those light workers, those angels, God was waiting for. I was the conduit. I was the conduit. So you understand, that demonic energy was connecting to me, and this light energy was connecting to me and through me. So in that moment, that demonic energy relaxed into what I was giving it, which was just small, nothing compared to the blast that came through me. That was the calling. That was the moment. And I just knew, like, whoa, whoa, oh, whoa. I just knew that for this energy, it had reached the end of its line. Or so I thought. Energy, actually, the funny thing about the story is, so this blast of light and love came through me for a few seconds. Like I said, enough for me to understand that, like, something much, like, bigger and stronger and powerful and loving and all this and blah blah blah. And so I just sort of, like, let it take the wheel, even though I was physically driving. And so I was like, okay, this energy's like, whoa, okay, they've got it. They've got this. And after the feeling subsided, there was a part of my mind that was like, oh, okay, this, story's over. Wow, I didn't know it was going to happen like that. And so my mind switched gears. And I started thinking about, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? And I tell you what, as soon as, like, seconds after my mind switched gears, so, like, at this point, I'm on a rural, windy road, headed towards home, and wooded, very heavily wooded. And as soon as my mind switched gears, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? What am I going to make for dinner? All of a sudden, a deer just side body slammed the passenger side of the car. And I was just like, wow. I mean, I saw this deer's, like, it was a huge deer. I saw this deer's head, like, in its eyes, just like slam against the passenger window. And I was just like, wow, what is going on here? Wow, I've never had anything like that happen to me before. And it freaked me out. Like, I was like, oh my God, I hope that deer is okay. And so I drove up the road a little ways until there was a place where I could turn around safely. And I was just, like, so worried about this deer now. And so I drove back to see, oh my gosh, does this deer need help? What happened? Is it, like, dead on the road? I didn't know. And so I drove all the way back, and I didn't see any deer or anything like that. So I figured, well, at least it didn't die, or at least it didn't die quickly. It meandered, back into the woods and beyond my sight. And so as I turned the car back around, I started thinking, what was that? Holy cow, what happened there? It was such an incredible story. And then for that to happen, and then I started to retrace. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I had that incredible experience, and I felt like, for, like, half hour, I'm connecting and communing with this energy, and I really feel like it's a friend to me, and I feel the light come through, and I know it's going to take it home. And so then I start thinking about dinner. That's when I realized what had happened. That's when I realized my own air. I never said goodbye to this energy. I never, like, here it was like, oh yeah, I'm sure you're gone. No. In that, what I believe very strongly was that energy felt, when I switched gears, all of a sudden, I'm paying so much attention to it, and I'm connecting to it, and I'm feeling, all the different emotions, throughout, its life as a spirit, and then as a physical being, and as a child, and blah blah blah, and we're connecting, we're being friends. And then all of a sudden I just left, exit stage left, didn't even say goodbye. And that's what I felt like. That's what that deer was about. It was like saying, because it happened like boom, that's what that energy was saying. Hey, don't you just leave without saying goodbye? We're friends now. We're friends now. Thank you. Thank you. And I realized, and I stopped. My mind said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh my, I'm new to all this. I've never had this experience. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that's how this worked." And I'm like, thank you for this experience. Thank you for trusting me with this. And we will always be friends, and I do. And I feel like that energy, whatever, whichever, I don't know if there was many that were in this child, but there was one that actually made it to the light. And I was a part of it. And so my son had told me about this, this big movie deal with Ellen Burstyn now for The Exorcist, for the trilogy, $400 million. And I thought, I hope in those trilogies, I hope there can be a happy ending. And, as I am about to embark upon my own personal next adventure, and there's a part of me that's scared, but there's also a part of me that's ready. And I have a reference now that, I think that can be how it's done. I want everybody to make it out alive, so to speak. I want all the tortured souls that are possessed to be free, and I want all the tortured energies that are possessing to be free also. And because of my own experience, I believe it's possible. And that's my hope and my wish for my own next adventure that's coming up here very soon, and for the nature of exorcisms. Their possession is very real, and but I think there's ways that it can be handled that makes a happy ending for all. So, anyways, that's my story. Okay, peace and love to all of you. Be safe. Don't play with Ouija boards.